When I was a teenager, I was on the phone with my boyfriend at the time and hanging out on the computer. The house I lived in at the time had giant windows on the first floor, like 8 feet by 8 feet. I was in one of the rooms with the huge windows and had opened the drapes to let some light in. While talking to my boyfriend, I had this super eerie feeling that I was being watched, and I slowly turned towards the window and saw a man in tattered clothes with sweat dripping off of every part of his body, pressed up against my window with his hands cupped over his eyes, and gave me this horrifying smile. I immediately dropped the phone. I was on a phone with a cord, and ran into the next room and grabbed the cordless phone. I told my boyfriend what was happening, and I started crying, trying to remember when all of the doors were locked. The man had to crawl over a few bushes in order to get that close to the window, which made me feel like he didn't have the best intentions. That's when the doorbell started ringing. I poked my head around the corner to see the front door, French doors with glass panes, and see the man trying to get in the house by opening the door. At this point, I'm absolutely freaking out, and my boyfriend tells me to call my mom. My mom answers at work, and she told me to hide and call the police. I called the cops crying, and then noticed out of the corner of my eye from a window in the back of the house that the man is making circles around the house looking for a way to get in. The dispatcher told me to get somewhere where he couldn't see me and get a weapon if it felt like it would make me more comfortable. I grabbed a long chef's knife and stood sobbing in a small gap between my back door and a hallway where I couldn't be seen through any windows. Then I remembered that a first-floor window was unlocked, and I couldn't see or hear the man anymore. Eventually, I hear a loud bang on my door and slowly go investigate it, and it's a policeman. He asked me to come outside with him so he can take a look around the house and make sure the man didn't find a way in. But he was never to be found. I hope he never comes back. One of my childhood homes had a balcony that was attached to both my mother's bedroom and mine via big glass doors in each of our rooms. Next to the balcony are 2 trees. One I often used to climb up and down from the balcony. One night when my brother and mother weren't home and I was about 13, reading in bed with a very dim reading light, I heard what sounded like something moving in one of the trees outside. But this didn't worry me, as possums and bats are common in our area. Now, I had thin curtains on the glass doors that separated my room and the balcony. The doors faced out towards the street, with a street lamp that's visible from my room. Shortly after hearing the tree rustling noises, I see a shadow slowly move past the doors, at which point I immediately turn off my reading light and freeze like a deer in headlights. The shadow is tall, so it wasn't a neighbor kid, and it wasn't my all of 5-foot mother. The person moved slowly, creeping as though they were trying not to be noticed. They wouldn't likely be able to see into my room, but I could see them thanks to the streetlights behind them. They moved past my doors out of sight. I sat there, unable to move or even think about what to do other than be absolutely still. That is, until I heard another sound. The sound of someone trying to open a glass door. My mom's doors to the balcony. I didn't know if she had locked them or not, but I wasn't taking chances. I moved as quickly and as silently as I could to my bedroom door and locked it. I listened for what the person was doing now. They were still jiggling the glass door handle, but it sounded like the doors weren't opening. I felt relief. This person couldn't get in, surely. All I had to do was wait for them to realize that, and then they would leave, right? Well, I heard light footsteps move back along the balcony to my set of glass doors, until I saw a shadow stop directly in front of them. Again, I froze. He couldn't see me. He couldn't know I can see him. I saw a shadow of a hand reach up to my door's handle, and my heart stopped. Had I actually locked those doors myself today? I was out there earlier. What if I forgot? The seconds leading up to him grabbing the handle felt like an eternity, but thankfully, When this person tried to open the door, it did not open. It was locked. I sighed such a sigh of relief. I was worried he had heard it. After this, he began pacing the length of the balcony. I didn't have a mobile. The landline was at the other end of the house, but I was scared to take my eyes off of them. I was silently crying and praying they would just leave. Then, I heard him stop moving. He then said, "I could just break the glass, you know." Before I could even process this, I saw car headlights turn around the corner of my street and then stop at our property gate. My mom was home. The person on the balcony moved out of sight, and I heard a loud thump as they jumped off of it. When my mom came inside, I was hysterical and was barely coherent in telling her what happened. Eventually, I got the message across, and she called the police. They never found or caught anyone, but a neighbor reported a truck in the street that matched the description of a truck that had been reported recently for attempted child abductions near my school a block away. When I was 17, I had a boyfriend who was in the Army. We didn't live on base, but in a tiny neighboring town nearby. He had some beef with a skinhead gang who had some members that were also in the Army. One night while we were sleeping, they knocked on our door. It was about 2 a.m., and we had no peephole or window near the door, so I opened it with the chain on. As soon as I did, 5 guys rushed the door and broke the chain. They all had baseball bats. The lights in the living room only stayed on for about 10 seconds because they began smashing my lamps, the overhead light on the fan, and then the kitchen and bedroom lights with their bats. I've never almost pissed my pants until then. I was so scared. My legs turned to rubber. Strangely, after they broke the chain, but before they smashed the lights, my vision got really dark, like the lights were dimming down. This was the first time it ever happened. But to this day, if something startles me, my vision goes almost black before snapping back to normal. So these guys grab my boyfriend and are holding him down on the couch. 2 guys holding him down, while the others take swing at his torso with their bats. I have no clue what to do, so I try to tackle them by taking a running jump. It's not really effective. I'm 17 and short, and these guys are like 25 and huge. My feet are bloody and cut up from running through broken glass, and I'm only wearing a t-shirt and undies. We had one phone in the house, and it was in the bedroom, and I somehow felt like these guys weren't going to let me get at it. I ran out of the house, no shoes, bloody feet, glass digging in deeper every step, and looked for the town's only cop. This is Nolanville, Texas, population 2,000. I ended up at the post office a few blocks over. There's a payphone, so I try calling 911. It rang and I was immediately put on hold. While I was waiting, the cop found me. He handcuffed me and put me in the cruiser because I didn't have any pants on. I tried to explain that my house had been broken into and my boyfriend was being assaulted, but the cop insisted on running my social security number to make sure everything added up. While I was in the back of the police car, I see the 5 guys drive past us in a pickup truck. After everything checked out okay with my record, the cop drove me home, blowing off my break-in story. My door was wide open, only the porch light lit. My boyfriend was still on the couch, curled up in a ball. He declined to go to the hospital. We found out later he had 2 broken ribs. The cop called a backup unit from another neighboring town and then urged us to name the attackers, but my boyfriend wouldn't, because that would have definitely secured us another visit from the gang. My best friend in high school lived in an old plantation-type house, and we would always hang out there during the summer. Since both of her parents worked, we would have the house to ourselves. There was a wide front door that opened into a hall with doors leading to the living room, the kitchen, and bedrooms, as well as a really wide staircase. All of the doors always stayed closed off in the summer to help with cooling that big house. One day, while we were both about 14, we were there alone and in the back of the house in the kitchen making lunch. The radio was on, and we had been outside tanning, and were only wearing swimsuits with t-shirts. We heard what sounded like somebody walking up and down the front porch. So I go to the living room and look out the window and don't see anything. I open the door to the hall and stand at the front door looking out. I still don't see anything. I heard somebody say, "Hey," and I turn around, and there is the biggest man I have ever seen, standing about halfway up the staircase. I just froze. I couldn't move or speak. About that time, my friend reaches out from the living room and pulls me back in and slams the door. We ran through the kitchen and out the back door to a neighbor's house. The neighbor goes and runs the man off, but not before the man tells him that he thought it was a boarding house and he was looking for a room to rent. After that, we were both a little OCD about checking that the front door was locked. About a week after that happened, we saw the man's mugshot in our local paper after he'd been arrested for raping a young girl not too far up the street. Many years later, after my friend and her family had moved from that house, the city condemned it and tore it down. When they did, they found 2 skeletons behind a wall that had been there since the 20s. Come to find out, it had been a boarding house many years ago, and the lady running it was a cold-blooded killer. I had just moved into my first apartment and was in the process of moving in. The door that led into my apartment locks itself automatically when closed. So, I was going to the entrance of the apartment complex to get my mail while talking on the phone with my boyfriend. I returned to my apartment and sat on the bed while opening the mail and using the phone. I dropped the phone on the floor and it landed under the bed, so I had to lie on the floor and stretch for it. I saw something that caught my eye. There was someone under my bed. My eyes widened, and I choked the urge to scream. The person under my bed was lying still with his back towards me, and his head to his chest, so I couldn't see his face. And he didn't see me. Trying to be rational while so many thoughts rushed through my head, I picked up the phone, said, "Sorry, I dropped my phone. I'm just gonna take a shower and call you back." The bathroom is right by my bed, so I hastily walked in, quietly locked the door, turned the shower on, jumped out the window — my apartment is on the first floor — and called the police. They told me to wait nearby, but to go to across the street and see if anyone comes out the door to the apartment complex. This was during summer and it was still light out. I placed myself across the street, hiding behind a car while watching my open bathroom window and the entry door. I called my boyfriend, and he came to me just before the police. I gave them my keys and they went inside. Only moments later, 2 cops came out holding a thin and tired-looking man. His eyes looked crazy, but he didn't try to get away. The policeman that had stood beside me and comforted me while the police searched through my house — I was a mess, shivering and crying — told me that the man stood outside my bathroom door with one of my kitchen knives, waiting for me to come out. This man had somehow crept into my entry door while I was getting my mail and hid under the bed. The man that was trying to hurt me turned out to be a homeless person and was placed in a mental hospital. My boyfriend moved in with me the very next day, because you never know when you end up in another situation like this one.